Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. The lights in the studio always came on the same way. Soft at first, then blooming into full brilliance, like a sunrise that knew exactly when to arrive. For decades, Kelly Ripa had stood at the center of that glow, smiling with a familiarity that felt almost familial to millions of viewers. Morning after morning, she greeted the world with laughter, quick wit, and an ease that made it seem as if the cameras weren't even there. But on this particular morning, something felt different. Kelly sensed it before the countdown reached zero. It was there in the stillness of her breath, in the quiet weight pressing against her chest. Nothing dramatic had happened, no breaking news, no scandal, no sudden announcement. And yet, beneath the practiced rhythm of her routine, a question pulsed insistently. To the outside world, Kelly Ripa's career looked like a dream preserved in amber. From her early days on All My Children to her long reign as America's morning companion on Live, she had built a professional life defined by consistency, something almost mythical in an industry addicted to reinvention. She was the woman who made it and stayed there. Yet the illusion of effortlessness hid the truth she rarely spoke aloud. Staying had been just as hard as rising. Every year brought new expectations, new conversations about relevance, new whispers about whether audiences were ready for something or someone else. Kelly had learned to laugh those whispers away. Humor was her shield. But shields, she was discovering, grow heavy when carried for too long. The turning point didn't arrive with a dramatic exit or a tearful on-air confession. It arrived late one evening, long after the makeup was wiped away and the house had settled into silence. Kelly sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug she no longer intended to drink from. Around her were the artifacts of a life lived at full speed: scripts, calendars, notes, reminders. Each one represented commitment, responsibility, success, and exhaustion. She thought about the younger version of herself, the girl who had moved to New York with more courage than certainty, who believed that passion alone could open doors. That girl had never imagined longevity. She had imagined feeling, the thrill of discovery, the terror of risk, the joy of being new. When had safety replaced curiosity? The realization didn't frighten her, it saddened her. For years, Kelly Ripa had been labeled in a single, comfortable way: morning television. It was a compliment, a brand, a badge of honor. But labels, even flattering ones, can become cages if left unquestioned. She wondered if the audience saw her, or only the version of her they expected to see: the upbeat host, the reliable presence, the woman who never seemed unsure. But she was unsure now, and the uncertainty felt strangely honest. Kelly wasn't unhappy. That was the most confusing part. She loved her job, respected her platform, and felt deeply grateful for the life it had given her family. But gratitude, she was learning, didn't cancel the right to evolve. And evolution, she knew, rarely comes without discomfort. In public, Kelly Ripa had always been fine. More than fine. She was funny, polished, composed. She had mastered the art of appearing unshaken, even when the world behind the scenes shifted. But privately, she began to notice how often she used humor to dodge harder truths, how often she reassured others instead of asking herself what she needed, how often she said yes because no felt too complicated, too disruptive, too final. Being fine had become a performance, and like all performances, it required energy she wasn't sure she wanted to keep
The most
spending the
important
same way.
conversations weren't with producers or executives. They happened at home, in quiet moments with Mark, in honest exchanges with her children, who were no longer children at all. "You don't have to prove anything anymore," one of them said casually, unaware of how deeply the words landed. Kelly realized that the pressure she felt wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from within, from a version of herself that believed stopping, shifting, or changing direction might erase what she had built. But what if it didn't? What if change wasn't betrayal, but growth? Fear, Kelly admitted to herself, had played a bigger role in her career than she liked to acknowledge. Fear of disappointing viewers, fear of losing relevance, fear of being replaced, forgotten, or misunderstood. Yet fear had also kept her safe. It had guided smart decisions, anchored her through uncertainty, and sharpened her instincts. The problem wasn't fear itself, it was letting fear make all the choices. She began to ask different questions, not what will people think, but what will I regret not trying? Not what's expected, but what feels alive. These questions didn't come with easy answers, but they came with relief. Success, Kelly realized, didn't have to look the way it always had. It didn't have to mean being everywhere, every day, forever. It could mean choosing depth over familiarity, meaning over momentum. She thought about creative projects she had quietly set aside, ideas that didn't fit neatly into her current image, passions that had been postponed because the timing never felt right. Maybe the timing wasn't about calendars or contracts. Maybe it was about courage. Kelly Ripa wasn't leaving. She wasn't announcing a dramatic departure or turning her back on the career that had shaped her. But she was standing at a crossroads, one that demanded honesty rather than habit. She could continue exactly as she had, comfortable and admired, or she could allow herself to grow in ways that felt uncertain but authentic. The turning point wasn't a single decision, it was a mindset shift, a quiet permission granted to herself to change the rules. Viewers might notice subtle differences, a deeper pause before laughter, a more thoughtful reflection woven into conversation, a vulnerability that didn't rush to resolve itself into a joke. They might not know why things felt different. They might not need to. Kelly understood now that her relationship with the audience didn't require perfection. It required presence. And presence, she had learned, begins with being honest with yourself. As Kelly stepped back into the studio light, something had shifted, not outwardly, but internally. The glow felt warmer, less demanding, more like an invitation than an expectation. She didn't have all the answers. She didn't need them. What she had was curiosity again. Curiosity about who she could still become, about stories she hadn't yet told, about a career that could expand rather than repeat itself. And in that curiosity, Kelly Ripa found something she hadn't realized she was missing. Not success, not fame, not applause, but freedom. The world often expects turning points to be dramatic, marked by headlines, announcements, or goodbyes. But some of the most powerful transformations happen quietly, long before anyone else notices. Kelly Ripa's emotional turning point wasn't about leaving something behind. It was about stepping forward with intention. And whatever came next, whether familiar or unexpected, one thing was certain. This chapter wouldn't be written out of fear, it would be written out of truth.